Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick unboxing and first look at the Maingear Vector Pro. Now this is the 17.3-inch version. You can also pick it up in a 15-inch variant as well. This retails for roughly $2,500 US. I will include a link in the description. And for those of you unfamiliar with Maingear, they are a boutique PC builder out of New Jersey. I've been there, great company, they make some beautiful rigs. This laptop, on the other hand, is essentially reference design that they assemble. You can't purchase it from them right now at the time of this video directly, but you can get it directly from Micro Center or through Amazon, which will also be fulfilled by Micro Center. And I will include a link in the description. And I'm excited to share this with all of you because this is a monster when it comes to performance, but also it's thin and light. A little over 4 pounds, I think roughly 4.4, 230 watt power supply. And as I open this up, 17.3-inch, 165 hertz QHD display, complemented by an Intel, of course, i7 11800H processor. That is an 8-core chip. And then to boot, you've got 32 gigs of RAM, but the star of the show is the RTX 3080 full power, 16 gigs of dedicated RAM. So I'm expecting a benchmarking monster out of this. And remember, at 0.41 pounds. So really impressive stuff. It's nice that it comes with 32 gigs of RAM stock, but I'll probably end up bumping that up to 64. I did purchase this. This is not a review unit. And for those of you that have been watching my coverage of the Omen 17, you already know how much I like that machine, but I'm expecting this to blow it out of the water. Another thing that's really nice about this machine, and I verified it with Maingear directly, is that the 2 NVMe slots on here both support Gen 4 drives. Now, I don't think it's a big issue that the HP only has one Gen 4 slot and the other is Gen 3, because right now I've got a 4 terabyte Sabrent Gen 4 Rocket 4 Plus in one, and then an 8 terabyte Sabrent Rocket Q, which is not a Gen 4 drive, in the other. But why wouldn't you want to have 2 Gen 4 drives on board? Just seems logical. Now, nice packaging, first thing I will tell you, and you can pick this up in store at Micro Center as well. So if, unlike me, you still have one in your area, that's a good goal or a good go-to. Micro Center is a great store, one of the last of the true PC stores you can walk into with hardware for enthusiasts. But packaging here looks nice. I'm not expecting battery life to be anything crazy, but still, performance is going to be bonkers on this thing. I mean, if the Omen 17 is indicative of anything, it's that this is going to be just one of the best laptops money can buy. And also, bear in mind, the pricing on this machine, $2,500 US, even if it were $3,000, it would still be incredibly competitive considering what it has to offer, because it really does have everything. So first of all, let's get the plastic off of this. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Satisfying for those of you that are into that. I'm not one of them, but I've got to do it all the time. And also the Maingear logo is nice. I have absolutely no qualms about Maingear's design language when it comes to their branding. I've purchased systems from them in the past. Let's go ahead and see what else is in the box, just get it out of there. But the machine, again, it's been a long time since I've been excited about a notebook. I get a lot of them in here for review, but this is the most powerful. I keep saying it because, well, it's the real deal. So Maingear stickers, a little merch, some instructions. And you know, I've seen Maingear laptops in the past, and I've liked what I've seen because you also get a clean install of Windows, which I really value. I mean, I despise bloatware. For those of you that follow the channel, you know, there's a certain acceptable amount that comes with dealing with the major manufacturers, the big box companies, but you don't have to worry about purchasing this. A lot of people, again, haven't heard of Maingear, but they are reputable. Although I will tell you that they offer complete support for this machine. The warranty of any actual components being bad, if you have something DOA or inside the manufacturer's warranty, I believe Micro Center is handling all of that. So just be aware of that. And I'm just hoping I get a good panel, because that, at least with the last laptop that I reviewed from Maingear, that was the only thing that held me back. So again, the form factor on this is pretty sweet. Quick tour around the chassis. You can see right here, we've got a micro SD card slot. I wish we would have had a full size, but I can deal. 2 Type A USB ports, some ventilation. Come around to the back. I/O is not, probably the one nitpick I would have with this machine. On paper, I knew this prior to ordering it. We've got a Thunderbolt 4 port, only one. It's the only Type-C port on the entire machine. You cannot charge the machine, at least that's what I've been told, via that port. So that's, it is what it is. HDMI 2.1, Ethernet, the power jack for, of course, the 230 watt supply. And then on the other side, we've got another Type A port and dedicated mic and headphone jack. And then, of course, a Kensington lock. Just a really nice machine. I think build quality is solid. Let's go ahead. I'm going to move the power supply out of the way, and let's open this thing up. So again, we've got some Maingear branding. More plastic, which I'm not surprised by. And remember, this is, I'm fairly sure, a Intel reference design. So this should give us all of the performance that you could ever imagine. I'm trying to get everything in frame here. The angle will change for when we get into real updates and benchmarking. Let's go for round 2 of sticker peel here, if I can find a seam. And as you may have noticed, the little bit of branding we have here, of course, the RTX 3080 on board, 165 hertz refresh rate, Wi-Fi 6, of course, Maingear Node Redline, as well as 4-zone RGB keyboard, so it's not per key, but I really don't care about that at all, and Windows Hello capability for the camera. And if I remember correctly, the webcam on the previous gen was, I think, a nose cam, down below the company logo, which is right there, in case you didn't see it. I am not a fan of those. In fact, I don't know anyone that is. We have a matte display. Again, I'm hoping the webcam is decent, but that's really not why you're buying a machine like this. So let's go ahead and see if it has any juice to power on. It looks like it does. That is your performance toggle right there. Keys seem, like they have more than enough travel. I'm looking for dead pixels. I don't see any. Well, make sure that's dust. It is dust. So it looks like we're good on dead pixels. It looks like it. Again, rudimentary. I'm not seeing a lot of backlight bleed, but it's tough to tell. I am in the studio. I have bright light everywhere, 5600K surrounding me. So to really be able to tell, not so easy. And then, of course, as you can see right here, indicating how to turn off the trackpad. Double tap, essentially, and that little light there will tell you that the trackpad is on or off. So if it's got the bulb with no light coming off, it's on. Bulb with light coming off, it's off. And, they could have thrown a Core i9 in here, but, that extra clock speed isn't going to change what this thing is capable of. Now, I'm listening. I'm hearing something. Hopefully it's not coil whine, because I am hearing a little something. Hopefully it's just the fans. But what I can tell you is that the machine does, again, impress me in terms of fit and finish. But what I'm really curious about is what things are going to actually perform like. From a video editing standpoint, this could be the perfect machine for content creation, the whole deal. That's what I'm looking at it for, specifically for those of you wondering why I would pick up something like this. It's because, well, that Omen 17, it whet the appetite. And then it made me think, well, what have I seen that looks better? And when I did see this machine originally, I did think that it had everything you could possibly want, but of course, less I/O than what we're getting out of the Omen. So as long as you're okay with the difference in I/O and you find the build quality fine and you don't care about, again, big box branding, which I personally do not, Even though I review a lot of machines from various manufacturers, I know Maingear, and again, they are a legit company. And even if they are only assembling these as opposed to building them, they still are putting their name on them and their reputation, and that matters. This isn't, some no-name company, and I think a lot of people tend to think Maingear is one of those companies, and they just aren't aware of them because they've never purchased or seen Maingear systems. But my history goes back with them to around I feel like it was 2014 was when I did my build with them. 2015, somewhere in that area. And it's a beautiful rig. I did get trashed by Hurricane Matthew, along with a lot of my other stuff, for those of you that don't know that. But I did pretty much rebuild as much as I could, but there wasn't really much left, unfortunately. And of course, I ended up doing a new custom build. But this laptop, I expect to get desktop performance out of, and the beauty is, yes, it's expensive at its price point, but it may rival what you can get out of desktop performance at its price. I mean, this may come close to a desktop 3080 rig. The only thing I read on the spec sheet that I won't say was concerning, but the RAM, again, is not as performance oriented as it could be. That's one of the reasons I may be bumping it up to 64 gigs, improving that a little bit, but that is yet another nitpick on an otherwise what appears on paper to be an excellent machine. And build quality seems good. I mean, again, nothing glaring here. You can see how quickly we're getting to Windows. And this is, as mentioned, a completely clean install. So we're not going to actually hit anything in terms of bloatware at all. And of course, you can roll this over to Windows 11 when you're ready. I don't, that's a matter of personal preference. But I haven't really been throwing Windows 11 onto any gaming rigs yet. Of course, going through using Windows 11, I've been testing it for a little while now. And now, of course, with all the Surface devices landing, that's a whole nother story. And what can I tell you? This machine just promises to be a monster. So I'm going to go ahead and log into this. Actually, I can do an offline account. That's another thing I like about getting a clean install. I was going to go ahead and actually log in, but you don't need to when you get a machine like this. You can just skip through that crap, and there's nothing wrong with it having the actual account. Just put Ed there. But realistically speaking, you don't need to. I'm not putting a password on this. So let's go ahead and get into the machine. Going to turn off everything because I don't need any diagnostics at all. This is just going to be running demo. But I'm expecting, again, desktop-like performance. And remember, 4.4 pounds. The brick is really not bad at all. I mean, it is a revised brick from the previous generation. And it's a China brick. I mean, let's be real. It is what it is. But this is not going to be about battery life. This is not going to be, I'm not going to say it's not about portability, because it's still a really portable machine. When you think of a 17.3 inch, you don't think of 4.4. The 15-inch variant of this, also the Vector Pro, comes in at under 4 pounds. I mean, that is the real appeal here. If you want a desktop that weighs 4.4 pounds or 3.7, whatever it is, that can travel with you, and that also in your home won't take up any space, that's what these machines are designed to do. Now, how loud they're going to get, if they're anything like the previous gen, they're going to get loud, but that's what you need to do in order to make sure that there's no throttling. They're going to get noisy. It's just a matter of fact. It's an Intel reference design, so I expect, max throughput on basically everything. And for those of you who are grossed out by Intel, because God knows there are many of you, you can get this, of course, with a Ryzen chipset as well, the 5900HX. So if that's what you're after, you can go for it. The only disadvantage that I see going with the Ryzen, and that's actually the most expensive build, they have a RAID 0 config of this exact system. That's their top of the line. So 2 1 terabyte NVMe's. with 64 gigs of RAM, and that thing tops out at like $3,000. The only downside to going that way is that, of course, the throughput of the single Type-C port at the back of the machine, not being Thunderbolt, isn't going to give you the same headroom, the same throughput that you get with Thunderbolt 4. So having that Thunderbolt 4 port, for me at least, is important because with it, it means that we actually can do quite a bit more than traditional Type-C. Now, that's not a reason not to go with the Ryzen 9 CPU if that's what you prefer. If you want that 5900HX, it should outperform this i7. But again, we're talking about in benchmarking. I feel like the i7 in most games is going to outperform, or put it this way, it's going to be close enough in terms of performance. Let me go ahead and, I was going to start installing Chrome and get down to business, but let's just take a look at what the display is like, because I am curious. Let's open up Edge, even though I'm not a big advocate of Edge. It's not terrible, but it's not my browser of preference. So let's just skip this altogether, and let's go ahead and just jump over to YouTube. And getting a numerical keypad, even though things are a little bit scrunched here compared to the Omen, certainly nice. I will tell you, I prefer the keyboard on the Omen. The display looks exactly the same, at least to my eyes, but I will have them side by side. I will likely compare these for those of you that are wondering. Let's go ahead and jump over to my channel and see what we're working with. Just in terms of, the actual screen quality, I'm expecting good things. Let's take a look at the Surface Pro 8 unboxing. By the way, Surface Pro 8 is a great machine. Dismiss this. And you can expect an update on this pretty quickly because I don't have a lot of time to decide whether or not this is a keeper or it's going back. So unlike traditional, let's see, I do have to use function. Let's see how loud this gets. So speakers, definitely not the strong suit here.
Launch day, October 5th, 2021, is the Intel 11th Gen Core i7 paired with 16 gigs of RAM.
We are at the native 1440, but let's just see.
Roughly $1,900 US. I will include a link in the description. After all, today is launch day, and you can purchase and have this in hand today.
A little bit of screen wobble, but that's pretty much par for the course here these days.
Exciting one, because not only do we have a larger display, now 13 inches, the second time in the Surface Pro's history to get a size bump up. The original one was 10.1 inches, then we went to over 12. And now
okay, so you're definitely not buying this machine for the speakers. Let's take a look at some 4K HDR content. Again, just as a demo of the display, I'm also going to make sure that we've got brightness all the way up. Let's go with the Costa Rica special. I mean, the speakers seem, well, underwhelming, as I would have imagined. Brightness at 100% right here. Don't you love it when YouTube craps on a video like that with an ad? All right, this display is looking really good. So the 1440p 17.3 inch 165 hertz IPS panel does not disappoint, and that's good news. That was one of my biggest concerns about this machine. Just because QC on the previous gen was not so hot. Not on Maingear, but again, this is an Intel reference design machine. But it's looking good. I like it. So I can easily see myself using this for content creation. Again, if the horsepower is there, which you already heard the spec sheet. I mean, it reads like a who's who of the computing world. And look, it's going to even be a little blown out at 100. So I feel like it's going to be happy at 50 to 60%, somewhere right around there. It's probably the best it's going to reproduce for all of you watching this at home. I just have to not fall in love with this thing. That's all I have to say. Because right now, the Omen 17 is the machine to beat in the 17-inch gaming class, at least as far as I've reviewed it thus far. Full review hasn't dropped yet, but it will be shortly. And you better believe I will be directly pointing at how this competes with it. especially since this is more affordable and in some ways a little bit more feature rich. Screen looks great. So this is really good news. Again, the keyboard, not my favorite, but the industrial minimal design, the fact that this is not going to be a fingerprint magnet, I think is a huge win for anyone that's wondering. And I'm going to reiterate that by showing you all of that, right now, that it is not picking up any fingerprints at all. Kudos to Maingear. I mean, why more manufacturers haven't figured out that a matte finish like this leaves no fingerprints, I can't speak to what's going on. But this machine looks really good. The performance button, if I cycle it, or at least I believe, so it's not giving me an on, okay, now it is. So turbo just came up, office, so this is going to be the least, obviously, in terms of fan noise, which I'm still hearing something. Again, hopefully not coil whine, because that will be like the kiss of death. But looks good. That pretty much wraps it up. Again, I will be giving you all an update really soon. Oh, and for those of you wondering if you can one-hand the lid, the answer is a resounding yes. So I'll keep you all posted. Any questions or comments, of course, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button. And as usual, please feel free to subscribe, and please stay safe. Later.